All right, Richard, could you tell us when and how you became aware of the contradictions in the official story pertaining to the three high-rise buildings?
Yeah, on 9/11, I was watching like everybody else that morning. I was in a state of shock, watching these buildings come down. Didn't know what I was looking at. Never seen anything like that before. Had no way of ascertaining what was going on, really. So tended to believe the experts, like the other architects and engineers, until about 2 years ago when David Ray Griffin was on the radio in Berkeley. And I couldn't believe it. It was the first time I'd ever heard an alternative story about how these three World Trade Center high-rise collapses went down on 9/11. And and it made sense to me because he was talking about the explosions heard by 118 firefighters and other first responders, flashes of light. And I'm going, what is he talking about? I never heard about explosions from the official story. Beams hurled 600 feet, their ends dripping with molten metal. I'm going, what? And it cut to 37-foot lengths, being expelled out of the Twin Towers at 60 miles an hour or something. 110 floors of the World Trade Center towers he was talking about, and yet you don't find one of them at the bottom of what is supposed to have been a gravitational collapse. And I'm going, my God, maybe I should have looked into this in a little more depth. I had to pull the car over and listen to I was late for a site observation meeting in the Bay Area, and I listened to the rest of us, and I was aghast at what I was hearing. So I had to at least check it out. I mean, it got my curiosity. So I went to the event that night at the Grand Lake Theater where David Ray Griffin was supposed to be, and it was sold out. There were 600 seats there, and I guess I was too late. So I went home and listened to the simulcast and showed up at a next meeting they were having in Oakland. And they all said, "Oh, you're an architect? Welcome," because there were hardly any architects or engineers speaking around the country. Well, there were none, and there were just a few activists. So that's how I got involved. I looked around and said, where are the architects and engineers? I'm going, oh my God, it's me. It's basically, so I knew what I had to do immediately. They had pilots for 9/11 Truth. They had veterans for 9/11 Truth. So I had to start the architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth. So I put up this dumb little website that I took a lot of heat for initially. I hope I have an archive of it somewhere. Anyway, we started from there, and now we have over 400 architects and engineers demanding a real investigation, and we'll have 1,000 by September 11th. We're starting a massive campaign to get the word out to all architects and engineers about this evidence for explosive controlled demolition.
How do we get these issues fairly represented in a media that's controlled by some of the same people that were behind 9/11?
Well, I don't know who was behind 9/11, but I do know that the media has been sorely silent on this issue. It has been very difficult to present science-based, forensic, factual evidence to architects, engineers, or the media. It's as if they're not interested. It's as if this brings up so much pain somehow that we just don't want to deal with it. So what we're doing is going straight to the architects and engineers. Whenever we get them in a room for a half an hour or an hour, or like last night here in St. Paul for 2 hours, we had 270 people there. 38 were unsure of how these towers came down. At the end of the meeting, I asked the question again. There was one that was unsure. That's a pretty startling turnover. So what we have to do is get the evidence in front of people, and then they become sure, they sign our petition, and our numbers are growing. And I think it's just a grassroots movement. Everybody across America who's aware of this issue has to. It's becomes a matter of civic responsibility to speak out and to speak to every architect and engineer they can, and everybody else that is around them. It's absolutely critical. It's a grassroots movement. Unfortunately, every change in America has ever been made has been made by a grassroots movement through starting with a small group of people, and the truth grows because it can't be kept down. The truth is empowering to people, and the truth has to be told, and it will cause some sort of revolution in this country because, as you suggested or implied, it turns out that Al-Qaeda didn't have access to these 3 buildings to plant the explosives, for which we have ample evidence on our website, ae911truth.org. And as soon as people realize that, they're going to start asking some serious questions like, well, who did have access to those buildings? And that raises all kinds of questions, implications that have to be forged through in a real independent investigation with subpoena power. And that's what we're demanding of Congress. And we'll go beyond Congress as well.